Everybody wants to be seen. Everybody wants to be loved. But the truth is, the more they see you, the less they value you. That's human nature. You give them everything, and they start to think it's nothing. But power is when you control your presence. Power is when you step back and you let them miss you. Have you ever noticed how people only value what they can't always have? Think about it. Diamonds, gold, rare things. It's not just about beauty, it's about scarcity. The less they can touch it, the more they chase it. The harder it is to reach, the more they respect it. Now apply that to you. If you are always there, always available, always answering the phone, always giving your time, always saying yes, people stop seeing your worth. They stop appreciating the gift that is you. That's human nature. Familiarity makes them blind. Too much access makes them ungrateful. Scarcity creates value. And if you don't control your presence, the world will consume you until you have nothing left. Listen. A man who's always available is a man who is never respected. A woman who is always there is a woman who is never cherished. You want them to feel your value. Stop giving it away like it's free. Stop giving out your energy as if it costs nothing. Your time, your presence, your attention, that's the most expensive currency you own. And if they don't pay for it with respect, then they don't deserve it. Here's the truth: the reason people take you for granted isn't because you're not valuable. It's because you've made your value common. You've placed yourself on every shelf, in every store, at every price. And anything they can always reach, they don't treat with care. But when you step back, when you create distance, suddenly they feel your absence. Suddenly, your silence is louder than your words. Suddenly, your presence becomes a privilege, not a guarantee. Look at history. Look at leadership. The kings, the queens, the generals, the visionaries, they understood this. They didn't show up everywhere. They didn't make themselves available to every request, every distraction. No, they were selective. They were scarce. And that scarcity gave them power. Because when you don't flood the market, your stock goes up. Ask yourself, why do people line up for things that are limited? Why do they pay more for exclusivity? Why do they chase what they cannot always have? It's because rarity creates desire. Rarity creates respect. Rarity creates demand. Now imagine applying that principle to your own life. Imagine walking into the room after they haven't seen you in a while, and suddenly, all eyes are on you. Imagine your phone ringing because you didn't always pick it up. Imagine people chasing your presence because you stopped offering it for free. That's not arrogance. That's discipline. That's knowing your worth. Because the truth is, people don't just miss you when you're gone. They realize how much they depended on you. They realize how much you carried, how much you gave, how much you provided. But they only see it when it's gone. So stop flooding their world with your presence. Step back, pull away, create scarcity. Because scarcity creates value. The most expensive art isn't the one hanging in every house. It's the one that's rare. The one that only a few can touch. The one that exists in a limited number. And you have to think of yourself the same way. Your attention, your time, your energy, these are masterpieces. Stop giving them away to everyone like it's cheap wallpaper. There's power in distance. There's power in silence. There's power in being rare. And when you learn how to master that, you no longer need to beg for attention. Attention comes to you. Respect comes to you. People chase what they cannot always have. You've been too available, too present, too giving. That's why they stop seeing you. That's why they stop valuing you. But once you step back, once you let them feel your absence, once you let them miss you, something shifts. Something changes. They begin to see again. They begin to remember. They begin to respect. You ever notice how the loudest man in the room is usually the weakest? Always speaking, always chasing, always desperate to be seen. He thinks presence means power. He thinks being everywhere means being respected. But the truth is, the man who controls his presence, the one who knows when to step in and when to step out, that man is feared, respected, remembered. See, presence isn't just about showing up. Presence is about impact. And if you're always available, always visible, always giving your energy to everything and everyone, your presence loses its weight. It becomes background noise. It becomes ordinary. But when you master the art of controlling your presence, you learn how to make every appearance count. You learn how to leave them thinking long after you've gone. You learn how to dominate a room without ever raising your voice. Presence is power, but only when you know how to control it. Think about it. A king doesn't walk through the village every day. A general doesn't reveal every move to his soldiers. A master doesn't teach every secret to his students. No, they choose their moments. They calculate their appearances. They understand that the less predictable they are, the more powerful they become. And you must understand this in your life. If people always know where to find you, always know you'll say yes, always know you'll be around, you've already lost your leverage. You've already handed away your strength because you've made yourself predictable. And predictability is a weakness. The man who controls his presence knows when to withdraw. He knows when to disappear. He knows the value of silence, of mystery, of distance. He doesn't give the world every piece of himself. He doesn't shine his light in every corner. He keeps some of it hidden. He saves it. He protects it. Because here's the truth: what is rare is respected, and what is constant is forgotten. You don't have to speak to make a point. Sometimes your silence shakes the room more than your words ever could. You don't have to always show up to prove your value. Sometimes your absence reminds them more than your presence. And when you know how to balance the two, when you know how to appear and disappear with precision, you hold power that most people can't even understand. This is why the strongest leaders are not the loudest. The greatest warriors are not always in the fight. The wisest minds are not constantly explaining themselves. They control their presence. They understand that their presence is a weapon. And like any weapon, it must be used with strategy. So ask yourself, are you giving away your presence too cheaply? Are you wasting it on people who don't deserve it? Are you showing up in places that don't build you, conversations that drain you, situations that don't need you? Or are you choosing carefully where you place yourself? Are you controlling the narrative, controlling the room, controlling the impact you make when you enter and when you leave? The weak man seeks attention everywhere. The strong man draws it without asking. He doesn't need to prove he belongs. He doesn't need to force his way in. His presence is felt the moment he steps into the room, because he's mastered control. And control is everything. Control is discipline. Control is strength. Control is the ability to say no when others expect a yes. Control is walking away when others cling to the crowd. Control is standing in silence when others beg to be heard. Because you don't need to be seen every moment to be remembered. You don't need to be heard every day to be respected. You don't need to always be present to have power. You need to know when to hold back. You need to know when to step forward. You need to know when to disappear, so that when you return, your presence feels like an event. That's how you create mystery. That's how you create authority. That's how you create respect. And understand this: when you control your presence, you don't just influence how others see you. You influence how you see yourself. You build patience. You build discipline. You build strength. Because you're no longer controlled by the need to be seen. You're no longer controlled by the need to always show up. You control the urge. You control the moment. You control the presence. And once you master that, the greatest prison most people live in is the prison of other people's opinions. They don't move until someone claps for them. They don't speak until someone validates them. They don't feel worthy until someone else says they are. And that, right there, is why so many people never reach their full potential. See, when you live for applause, you die in silence. When you depend on compliments, you collapse under criticism. When you seek validation from the world owns you. But when you learn self-mastery, when you know who you are without the crowd, without the claps, without the noise, then you become untouchable. Then your value is no longer determined by the shifting winds of other people's opinions. Too many people today are addicted to attention, addicted to likes, addicted to comments, addicted to that little hit of dopamine every time someone says, "Good job." But that's a weakness. That's dependency. That's slavery. Because the moment the applause stops, so does their confidence. The moment the attention fades, so does their sense of worth. But the strong man, the strong woman, they don't need it. They don't chase it. They don't beg for it. Their validation comes from within. Their approval comes from self-mastery. Understand this. When you seek validation from others, you're handing them the keys to your emotions. You're telling them, "Here, decide if I'm valuable today." You're giving strangers, critics, haters, and even people who don't truly know you control over your spirit. And that's dangerous, because the same people who cheer for you one day will boo you the next. The same people who lift you will tear you down when it suits them. But when you own yourself, when you validate yourself, when you live by your own code, no one can take that away from you. Think about a mountain. The mountain doesn't move because of the wind. The mountain doesn't shrink because of the rain. The mountain doesn't bend because of the storm. Why? Because it is rooted, it is grounded, It doesn't need validation to exist. It simply is. That's what self-mastery gives you. That unshakable presence, that rooted confidence, that strength that doesn't rise and fall with the noise of the crowd. Ask yourself, who are you when nobody is watching? Who are you when nobody is clapping? Who are you when there's no spotlight, no recognition, no reward? Because that's who you really are. If you can still stand tall when no one notices, if you can still stay disciplined when no one is clapping, if you can still keep going when no one is cheering, then you have mastered yourself. Then you have broken free of the prison that traps most people. But if you only perform when the audience is watching, then you are not free. You're a puppet. You're dancing for approval. You're living for likes. And deep down, you'll always be empty. Self-mastery is discipline. It's doing what you must do, not for the applause, not for the recognition, but because it is who you are. It is what you stand for. It is your standard. It means you don't lower your values because someone disapproves. You don't shrink your dreams because someone doubts. You don't stop your grind because someone doesn't clap. You move forward anyway. You rise anyway. You keep going anyway. Because you're not living for them. You're living for the calling inside you. You're living for the standard you set. You're living for the purpose that burns within your soul. And when you get to that place, when you are no longer moved by the noise, the opinions, the approval or disapproval of others, you become unstoppable. You walk differently. You talk differently. You move with a quiet confidence that no applause can give and no critic can take away. The man who masters himself, the woman who masters herself, they are free. Free from the chains of public opinion. Free from the addiction of validation. Free from the weakness of needing to be seen. Because the truth is, the world may never clap for you. The world may never recognize you. The world may never understand you. And if your worth depends on that, you will never be enough. But when your worth comes from within, when it's rooted in self-mastery, when it's not for sale, not negotiable, not dependent on applause, then you walk in power that few ever touch. Respect is not given when you demand it. Respect is not earned when you beg for it. Respect is not something you can force into people's hearts with constant noise and constant presence. Respect is born in the silence. It's born in the distance. It's born when your absence speaks louder than your presence ever could. See, people don't always realize your value while you're standing in front of them. When you're always there, always available, always giving, they start to believe it's endless. They start to believe it's guaranteed. They start to believe it costs nothing. And so they stop respecting it. They stop cherishing it. They stop valuing you. But the moment you step away, the moment you pull back your presence, your time, your energy, something happens. They begin to notice. They begin to feel the weight of what's missing. They begin to realize how much you carried, how much you gave, how much you meant. Because absence forces reflection. Distance forces perspective. Silence forces respect. Think about it. When someone is always talking, their words lose meaning. But when someone chooses their words carefully, when they speak only when it matters, their voice carries weight. People lean in. People listen. That's because they understand the value of distance. They understand the power of silence. The same applies to your life. When you're always showing up, always giving, always chasing, people forget what you're worth. But when you step back, when you hold your ground, when you create distance, you force them to see you differently. You force them to remember. You force them to respect. Respect is earned in distance because distance creates clarity. People can't see the picture when they're too close to it. They can't appreciate the painting when their nose is pressed against the canvas. But when they step back, suddenly they see the whole masterpiece. Suddenly they understand the beauty. Suddenly they respect it. And so it is with you. When you give people space to miss you, they begin to see the masterpiece. They begin to recognize what you brought into their lives. They begin to understand the value that was always there, but never acknowledged. Respect isn't about forcing your presence. It's about mastering your absence. It's about knowing when to step back, so the silence speaks louder than anything you could say. That's why the strongest leaders in history knew how to hold distance. They didn't flood the people with their presence every hour of every day. They appeared with purpose. They disappeared with strategy, and their absence carried as much weight as their words. When they returned, people listened. When they appeared, people respected them. You want to know why some people are never respected? Because they never pull away. They never step back. They're always there, always begging, always giving, always proving. But the man who understands distance, the woman who understands space, They hold power without ever lifting a finger, because the distance itself becomes a statement. It says, I don't need to beg for your attention. I don't need to fight for your respect. I know my worth, and I will not hand it out cheaply. If you can't see it while I'm here, then you will feel it when I'm gone. Absence is a teacher. It teaches others how valuable you are. It teaches them to cherish what they once overlooked. It teaches them that respect is not given out of convenience. It is earned through recognition. And here's the truth. People will always remember how you made them feel, but sometimes they only realize the depth of it when you are no longer standing beside them. Sometimes they only see your value when the silence forces them to reflect. Sometimes they only show respect after distance reveals what they failed to honor. That is why you cannot always be present. You cannot always be giving. You cannot always be available. Because when you are, they will grow blind to your light. They will stop hearing your words. They will stop respecting your value. But when you pull back, when you let them sit with your absence, when you let them miss you, that's when respect is born. That's when the lessons sink in. That's when they look at you not with entitlement, but with gratitude, not with arrogance, but with reverence, not with neglect, but with respect. So now you understand. Value is not in being everywhere. Value is not in being always available. Value is not in chasing attention or begging for respect. Value is in scarcity. Value is in control. Value is in mastery. Value is in distance. Let them miss you. Let them wonder where you've gone. Let them feel the silence you leave behind. Because in that silence, in that space, in that distance, your power grows. You don't raise your worth by shouting louder. You don't raise your worth by proving yourself to everyone. You raise your worth by stepping back, by holding your ground, by knowing your value without needing them to confirm it. And when you live this way, when you walk with discipline, when you control your presence, when you master yourself, when you earn respect through distance, you no longer chase the world. The world turns to chase you. Remember, this power is not about being everywhere. Power is about being felt even when you're not there. So stop giving yourself away. Stop lowering your value. Stop seeking validation from those who cannot see your worth. Hold back, stand tall, walk with discipline, and let them miss you. Because when they miss you, they remember you. When they remember you, they respect you. And when they respect you, your value rises beyond measure.